Her talk is called Functional Medicine for the Underserved. Can we have a warm Illinois welcome for the unstoppable Dr. Terry Wahls.
All right. Thanks for having me. So I can figure out forward. Okay, so I think most of you know my story. I have progressive MS, diagnosed in 2000. Within 3 years, I needed a tilt-recline wheelchair, and I had 7 years of going steadily downhill. However, I was profoundly grateful because this would make me the person that I am today. I would start reading the basic science again, and I'd begin to experiment with myself, taking a variety of vitamins and supplements. I got in touch with the ancestral health movement, the paleo diet, and after 20 years of being a vegetarian, I went back to eating meat. And then I discovered functional medicine and really had a much deeper understanding of all the things that I could do. It was when I married all of that, the basic science, the ancestral health movement, and functional medicine, that I went in 1 year from being unable to sit up in a regular chair and struggling to walk from here to the door to being able to do a 20-mile bike ride with my family. That, of course, changed how I understood disease and health. It changed how I practiced medicine, and it would change the research that I do. My chair of medicine said, "This is so important. I need you to write a case report with your treating physical therapist and neurologist," which I did. And then he said, "Now I need you to write a clinical protocol, and we'll get this through the IRB. I'll get you some colleagues to help you design the study, and we'll tether others with progressive clinic and a primary care clinic." And of course, I was not the same doctor anymore. I was talking about these radical things known as vegetables, glowing gluten-free, taking vitamins and fish oil. And my dietitians said I was crazy. My medical colleagues said, "This is not FDA approved," and complaints were being filed. So then I had to go into my chief of staff with my card of 85 papers to explain what I was doing that was science-based. And he did support me and said, "Okay, if she's not causing problems, get off her case. She can continue to talk about treating people using food." I did, however, go underground, and I didn't document what I was doing in the notes. And so I was doing things my way. Now, my clinic, at the Traumatic Brain Injury Clinic, was a multidisciplinary team, primary care, phys med, speech path, neuropsychology, psychiatry. We saw people every 6 months who'd had a blast exposure. I got to see them 20 minutes, no labs. 20 minutes, no labs. And this new way of thinking about disease and health. And here's one of the people that I saw. A 32-year-old white man who had been deployed 3 times. Most recently had 3 blast exposures. One time he had knocked out for several minutes, and was disoriented for several hours. He had an 80-pound weight gain over the last year. He reported daily burn pit exposure where they burned whatever refuse that they encountered at the base. He was having worsening headaches, worsening back pains. He was increasingly irritable. He had more problems with brain fog. His marriage was, and he was drummed out of the military at that time, and he'd been out for a year. His marriage was failing. He had entered school but was flunking out. I told him that he probably had hormone disruption because he had difficulty, most likely, metabolizing whatever it was that he had encountered from the burn pits. His brain and mitochondria were probably starving because he had such a crappy diet. He was eating sugar and white flour. And he probably had unrecognized gluten and casein sensitivity. Now, I had spent 18 months getting my building blocks for a better brain through the patient. And I told him, do a modified paleo diet. Go gluten-free, and if you can, grain-free. Remove dairy unless you're eating clarified butter. 9 cups of vegetables, preferably greens, sulfur-rich vegetables, and deeply pigmented stuff. Do an Epsom salt soak every evening for stress reduction, and please add walking and hiking to your day. Now, when I saw him 6 months later, his headaches were reduced. He was doing the diet, sort of, and he was now divorced. At 12 months, he was 100% compliant. His headaches were gone, and his weight was down 60 pounds. And at 2 years, he was remarried, and he had graduated with honors. I've seen him last year, and he has a small business and is really thriving, doing very, very well. Our research got underway, and we have since published the paper. We have these, a little quick summary. We had 20 people with secondary and primary progressive MS. Now, when you have that, there's no spontaneous recovery. It's just steady downhill. The top lines are the improvements in the short form, 36 quality of life measures and energy measures. The red bar is the steady reduction in fatigue severity scale score. So this is the most severely fatigued with the largest reduction in fatigue ever reported. P-value 0.0005 with only 20. It's really quite remarkable. I also had these amazing videos pre and post, which people at the VA and the university saw since we had a research week that happened every year. Which meant 3 years ago, the chief of medicine came up to me and said, we'd like you to start a clinic where you got to do the stuff the way you'd like to do it. We decided to call it a therapeutic lifestyle clinic so everybody would understand what it was I did, which was diet and lifestyle. And the people, mind you, that I'm serving are people who do not have money. They're disabled vets. They're poor. They don't have money. They aren't buying organic. They aren't getting fancy supplements. They aren't going to be getting fancy tests. We have group classes that are led by a physician, me, and a dietitian. The dietitian's gone through the week of functional medicine training. We have an intro where I tell my story and the concepts of functional medicine. That takes half an hour, and then we answer, and we tell people that they have the diet that we're eating, sugar and white flour, is wrecking our health, and they ought to quit it. They ought to eat these radical things known as vegetables. Greens, deeply colored and sulfur-rich vegetables, because that provides the building blocks that your brains and your cells need to thrive, and that your microbiome need to thrive, and will help the disease-promoting genes be turned off and the health-promoting genes be turned on. And if you're up for doing that, and you're willing to do it 100%, you can go join the group classes. And the expectation is you're going to be 100% for 100 days, gluten-free, dairy-free, and ramp up the vegetables. If you're going to be a vegetarian, we do have vegetarian options for you. If you can't do that, but you want to improve your diet, we can let you work individually with a dietitian. And if you're pre-contemplative, we say, that's fine, just go back to your primary care doc and ask for another consult when you're ready. The group class meets a half day. There's 2 hours with me. We do a timeline and a matrix together as a group, and I've gotten so I can do this with up to 8 people at once. And then after that 2 hours, I hand them off to the dietitian who comes in with their portable kitchen, and we make bacon and greens and green smoothies and help them reimagine the relationship with food. And these guys, I let them know that my daughter has a favorite saying, bacon fixes any vegetable. You know, when the vets hear that, they're like, really? I said, yes. If that wasn't enough, just double the bacon and start over next time. And I grew up on a farm. I talk farmer. I occasionally swear we talk manure. And, you know, they really enjoy that a great deal. Now, I don't do fancy labs. This is primary care stuff. We measure waist-hip ratios. Actually, I don't. The dietitian does. And the weight, the BMI. I don't even measure the blood pressures. We just see whatever was recorded previously in the charts. And these are the basic primary care labs we get with the intake visit and with their shared medical group visits. A CRP, vitamin D, A1C, lipids, triglyceride, HDL ratio, homocysteine. I do a B12 folate once. The other labs I'll measure each time. We talk about cooking at home, gardening, hunting, fishing, foraging. We talk about making fermented foods, and we do cooking demonstrations, by the way. We talk a lot about poop. Poop rocks, man. We also talk, is your poop rock-like, or pudding-like, or snake-like? And to let them all, this is the poop of nirvana. We want them to have snake-like poops. And if you're having diarrhea, you don't have raw foods. You're going to have a lot of bone broth, more organ meats. If you're having hard turds, you have more fiber. And so you're having nirvana snake-like poops. I mentioned earlier that the other thing that my vets have taught me is we have to deal with resilience. People need an inspiring story, I give them that, but they also need to know why are they doing this? What is the meaning in their life? What is health to them? What is health going to do for them? What is the meaning of their illness? And I tell them, I'm profoundly grateful that I developed MS so I could have this amazing mission of teaching the world that they could get their life back too by changing their diet and lifestyle. And so my illness has given me immense meaning. What is the meaning of your illness? And what will your hero's journey be as you take what you've learned and give back to the world? This resonates very deeply. It gives the veterans the resolve and the fortitude to tackle food addictions, addictions to our health-destroying inactivity levels, and the resilience to deal with the destructive social and family networks that sabotage our efforts at recovery. So we see them every 6 weeks, and we'll see them 6 months to a year. These are the kinds of conditions. The pain clinic's my #1 referral source, primary care as second. These are the types of problems. Pain being the most common reason people come see me, metabolic disturbance being the next, autoimmune and neurodegenerative mental health issues following. And what I see consistently is reductions in the medical symptoms questionnaire scores, improvements in mood, cognition, improved energy. Pain scores steadily reduce. The narcotic medication needs steadily decline. Blood pressures and blood sugars fall. We are steadily working with their primary care doc to reduce their meds. And people consistently lose weight without being hungry. I also tell these young vets, because erectile dysfunction is so common, that improvement in hormonal function and improvement in your sex life is one of the most common things that are reported by the guys. The women report weight loss, but their pelvic pain declines, their fertility improves, so their hot flashes also decline. Because I'm at the VA, I have this amazing electronic medical record. And so my quality improvement and my program analyst has created the TLC patient registry that I get to use for quality improvement. I'll have to write a separate grant so I can report it publicly for research. But we get to monitor the BMI, the weights, the blood pressures, all those labs, the cost of care, what meds they are taking, and the cost of meds. And what I'm able to make the observation is that blood pressure is falling, blood sugars are falling, while the cardiovascular med use is falling, while the diabetic meds are falling, and that the narcotic use is dropping off. It's really very, very gratifying. And the other thing I want to tell you guys is I've gone from wacko, eccentric, oddity, like what are you doing? Come to the chief of staffs, explain yourself, you got people really upset, to visionary. The VA central office has come out to Iowa City to watch our clinic and see what we're doing because they've heard about our amazing success. The MS Society, who heard about me, interviewed me, and then banned me as a speaker because I was creating false hope. False hope, vegetables, dangerous thing. Well, so I wrote grants to them, and my first couple times I got my grant reviews back. They were scathing. I'm clearly incompetent. I know nothing about autoimmunity, nothing about neurology, nothing about MS. But, I kept writing my grants back with my preliminary data. And then I started writing my grants back with my peer-reviewed published data. And then, you know what? We now have a National MS Society funded clinical trial. So, if you have people who have MS, I really would like to have the opportunity to enroll them in our clinical trial. We need people who are from Iowa and the contiguous states. And you can reach us through MS Diet Study at healthcare.uiowa.edu. We can screen them. We'll be comparing them. They'll have an observation period where they do their usual diet, and then they'll get randomized to the low saturated fat diet, which also has some great research showing it to be helpful, and the modified paleo diet. I run in-person events for the public and for clinicians. I run a clinician certification program, and I have a couple books out. And I actually got done a little bit early. So, thank you all.